The night was silent, but not peaceful. Clouds moved across the blood moon, painting the land in a dark red light. Deep inside the vampire kingdom, the air was heavy with fear and power. The palace stood like a mountain of black stone, its towers sharp like fangs. This was the home of the vampire queen, the ruler of shadows. Her daughter, the princess, walked alone through the empty halls. She was young compared to the ancient vampires, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Her long cloak touched the cold marble floor as she moved with grace. But her steps were restless, her heart was troubled. For many nights, she had heard whispers from outside the palace walls. Whispers of humans, whispers of warriors who dared to fight against her mother's rule. The princess had been told all her life that humans were weak. They were prey, nothing more than cattle to feed on. Yet something inside her did not believe it fully. She wanted to see for herself. She wanted to know the truth. That night, when the guards were distracted and the queen was in her throne room, the princess slipped out through a hidden gate in the wall. The forest outside was alive with strange sounds. Owls cried, wolves howled, and the wind moved like a living spirit between the trees. The princess felt fear, but also freedom. For the first time, she was outside without her mother's watchful eyes. As she moved deeper into the woods, she saw a flicker of light. It was not fire, not a torch, but something brighter. She followed it carefully, her sharp senses alert. And then she saw him. A human warrior stood in a clearing. He was young, perhaps no older than she was. His armor was broken, his body covered in wounds. But in his hand he held a sword that glowed faintly with silver light. The weapon pulsed like it carried a heartbeat of its own. The princess froze, watching from the shadows. She had never seen a human so close before. The warrior looked around, his breathing heavy but his eyes full of fire. He was not afraid, even though he was deep inside vampire lands. Two vampire guards suddenly appeared from the darkness, their fangs shining under the blood moon. They hissed, ready to strike. The princess' heart raced. She should have turned away, let the guards do their work. But she could not. Something about the warrior's courage held her still. The guards attacked, moving faster than human eyes could follow. But the warrior lifted his glowing sword. Steel clashed with fong, sparks lit the night. The fight was brutal. The warrior's strength was great, but he was only one man against creatures of the night. He fought with everything he had, but soon one guard pushed him to his knees. The other raised his claws to end his life. The princess stepped forward without thinking. "Stop!" Her voice rang through the clearing like thunder. The guards froze, shocked. The princess never came here, never interfered with hunts. Her presence was a command they could not ignore. The warrior looked up at her, his eyes meeting hers. For a moment the world stopped. Vampire and human, enemies by blood, stared at each other. The princess felt something strange. Not hunger, not anger, but a pull, a spark, something alive. The guards waited for her order. She should have told them to kill him, to obey her mother's law. But the words would not come. Instead, she said, "Leave him to me." The guards looked confused but obeyed, melting back into the shadows. The warrior struggled to his feet, his sword still in hand. "Are you going to finish it yourself?" he asked, his voice rough but steady. The princess shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered, "I am not." The forest was silent again. Only the blood moon watched as the vampire princess and the human warrior stood facing each other. Her heart beat faster than it ever had before. And deep inside, she knew this night would change everything. She was the daughter of the vampire queen. But tonight, she had defied her mother for the first time. And it was all because of one human warrior. The princess did not move. Her crimson eyes watched the human warrior as he stood tall in the moonlit clearing. His breathing was rough, his wounds fresh, yet he did not lower his sword. The silver glow along its blade trembled faintly, as if it could sense her power. She had expected fear, trembling, maybe even begging for mercy. But his gaze was steady, defiant, almost challenging. It was the first time in her life that a human had looked at her not as prey, not as a monster, but as an equal. The warrior spoke, his voice low but sharp. If you are here to finish what they started, then do it quickly. His words cut through the silence like steel. The princess tilted her head, curious. You do not beg, she said softly, almost to herself. Why should I? He answered. I've faced death many times. Tonight is no different. There was strength in him, a fire that made her chest tighten. Every tale her mother had told her about humans crumbled in that moment. Weak, fragile, cowardly. That was what she had always been taught. Yet here was proof that humans could be something more. Here was proof that perhaps her mother had been lying all along. She stepped closer, her cloak brushing against the leaves. The warrior did not back away, though his knuckles whitened around his sword. Up close, she could see the blood dripping down his arm, the cuts across his face. He was hurt badly, yet he stood unbroken. Why are you here, human? She asked. His lips pressed into a thin line. I came to fight, he said, not for glory, not for riches, but for survival. Your kind has taken too many lives. Someone must stand, even if it is only me. His words struck her deeper than any blade. No fear, no submission, only resolve. The princess felt a strange heat rise in her chest, a mix of admiration and guilt. She had fed on humans before, without thought, without question. But this one was different. The trees whispered with the night wind. The air grew colder, heavier. She knew the guards would return soon, or worse, her mother would sense her absence. She should have left, turned back before it was too late. But her heart would not allow it. Instead, she whispered, "Follow me." The warrior frowned, suspicious. Why? Because if you stay here, you will die, she replied, her voice sharp. I can keep you alive for now. He hesitated, but there was something in her tone, something that did not sound like deceit. Slowly, he lowered his sword, though he did not sheath it. The princess turned and led him deeper into the forest, away from the patrol paths of the guards. They walked in silence, her steps light as shadow, his heavy with pain. Every so often she glanced back, and each time his eyes were still burning, unyielding. It unsettled her, yet it also pulled her closer to him. At last, they stopped near the ruins of an old stone temple. The walls were cracked, the altar broken, but it was far from the queen's spies. Here, the princess turned to face him fully. You are reckless, human, she said, and you are dangerous, he replied without hesitation. A faint smile touched her lips, sharp but soft. Perhaps we are both, she admitted. For a long moment, they simply looked at one another. The blood moon above bathed them both in its red light. Two enemies, bound by fate, standing closer than they should. The warrior finally spoke, his voice quieter this time. What is your name? The princess paused, unsure if she should tell him. Her name was Power. Her name was Identity. But for some reason, she wanted him to know. Celine, she whispered. His lips shaped the name slowly, like it was something sacred. Celine. The sound of it from his mouth sent a shiver through her. In return, she asked, And you? Darius, he said, firm and proud. The princess repeated it under her breath, as if committing it to memory. Darius. For the first time in her long existence, Celine felt alive. Not because of blood, not because of fear, but because of a human's courage. But deep inside, she knew this bond was dangerous. Her mother's wrath was endless, her laws unbreakable. If the queen ever discovered this meeting, both she and Darius would face death. Yet as she looked into his eyes, Celine realized she did not care. For the first time, the princess of the night had chosen her own path. And it began with a single human warrior who refused to bow. The nights that followed were no longer the same. Celine, the vampire princess, found herself returning to the ruined temple again and again. Each time, she told herself it would be the last. Yet each night, her steps betrayed her, guiding her through the forest shadows back to him. Darius, the human warrior, waited. At first he had been cautious, sword always in hand, his eyes wary of every movement she made. But slowly, the sharpness in his stance softened. Not because he trusted her fully, but because he began to see her not as a monster, but as someone trapped, just as he was. Their conversations began with silence. Simple questions, simple answers. "Why do you not fear me?" she once asked. "Because fear gives power to the wrong hands," he replied. And when she asked why he kept fighting even when wounded, he simply said, "Because if I stop, everything I lost will mean nothing." Celine felt her chest ache at his words. She had never spoken to a human like this, never allowed herself to see them as more than prey. Yet every time Darius spoke, every time his tired eyes held that fire, she saw something no vampire could ever match. Strength born not from immortality, but from the will to rise again and again. One night, rain poured through the forest. Thunder cracked across the sky. Lightning flashed against the broken stones of the temple. Celine arrived drenched, her cloak heavy with water. Darius was already there, leaning against the altar, his sword laid beside him. He looked at her and laughed softly. "You should not be here in this storm," he said. "And yet you are here too," she replied with a faint smile. For a moment, the storm around them faded. The world felt smaller, quieter, as if it existed only for the two of them. Celine sat near him, her red eyes dimmed to a softer glow. "Do you hate us?" she asked suddenly, her voice barely a whisper. Darius turned to her slowly. "I hate what your kind has done, yes, but I don't know what to hate in you." Her breath caught at his words. Vampires did not speak of such things, did not allow themselves weakness. Yet in that ruined temple, with the storm raging above, weakness became something else. Something fragile, something precious. Days turned into nights, and nights into more secret meetings. Celine began to notice small details about Darius. The scar along his jaw, the way he clenched his fist when he remembered something painful, the way he whispered his sister's name in his sleep, a name she never dared to ask about. And Darius noticed her too, the way her voice softened when she spoke in whispers, the way her eyes turned less cruel when she looked at him, and the way she carried guilt in silence, a burden heavier than her crown. But the deeper their bond grew, the more dangerous it became. The palace was alive with whispers. The queen's spies had noticed her absences. Her mother's eyes grew sharper, colder. "You wander too much," the queen said one night. "Tell me, daughter, what secrets do you chase in the dark?" Celine lowered her head, hiding the truth. But her heart raced, for she knew the queen's suspicion was growing. Back in the forest, Celine warned Darius. "My mother senses everything. We cannot keep this forever." Darius looked at her, his jaw set. "Then let her sense it," he said firmly. "You're not a prisoner unless you choose to be." His words shook her. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even the elder vampires. All her life, she had been told her path was already written: obedience, power, silence. But here was a human, fragile yet unbroken, telling her she could choose. And for the first time, Celine wanted to believe it. One night, as they stood beneath the blood moon again, Darius touched her hand. His fingers were warm, alive, unlike the cold skin of her kind. She almost pulled away, afraid of what it meant. But instead, she let his touch linger. The bond between them was no longer unspoken. It was dangerous, it was forbidden, but it was real. Yet even as their bond deepened, the shadows thickened around them. The guard began to patrol closer, their eyes sharper. Celine knew it was only a matter of time before her mother discovered the truth. And when that day came, the queen would not forgive. She would demand blood, either his or her own. But as Celine looked at Darius that night, the choice in her heart became clearer. She would not let him fall, not to her kind, not to her mother, even if it meant defying the throne itself. The throne room was silent. Torches burned with black fire, their flames casting twisted shadows across the stone walls. At the center sat the vampire queen, her presence heavy like the weight of centuries. Her crimson eyes glowed with cruel wisdom, and her smile was sharper than any blade. Celine entered slowly, her steps echoing on the cold floor. She lowered her head, trying to mask the storm inside her chest. But she could feel it. Her mother already knew. The queen's power stretched across the land, and no secret remained hidden for long. "My daughter," the queen's voice was smooth, dangerous. "You have been wandering far from the palace." Celine froze, every muscle tense. "I walked the forests only to clear my mind," she answered carefully. The queen leaned forward, her long nails tapping against the arm of her throne. "Do not lie to me, Celine." The words struck like thunder. Celine's breath caught, her heart raced. Her mother's voice carried not just authority, but an ancient power that forced truth from all who heard it. And the truth was death itself. "You have been meeting a human," the queen hissed, her fangs gleaming in the firelight. "A warrior, bold enough to enter my lands. Do you think I would not sense the heartbeat you guard so closely? Do you think I am blind?" Celine's lips parted, but no sound escaped. Every excuse she had thought of dissolved under her mother's gaze. The queen rose from her throne, her figure towering, her cloak flowing like liquid night. "You shame your blood," she whispered coldly. "You dishonor me with your weakness. But perhaps there's a way to cleanse this stain." Celine's hands trembled at her sides. Her mother's words were not unexpected, yet they cut deeper than she had feared. The queen lifted a jeweled dagger, its blade shimmering with cursed silver. She extended it toward Celine. "Find the human," she commanded. "Kill him with this blade. Bring me his heart, and perhaps I will forgive your foolishness." The silence that followed was suffocating. Celine's fingers curled into fists beneath her cloak. Every part of her screamed to refuse. But before the queen, refusal was death. "My mother," she began softly, her voice shaking. "He has done nothing." The queen's hand shot out, striking Celine across the face. The blow echoed like thunder through the chamber. "Do not speak of him as if he matters," the queen roared. "He is nothing but meat, a toy that you have mistaken for something greater." Celine staggered, her cheek burning, but inside, her heart blazed with fire. Darius was not nothing. He was the only one who had ever seen her as more than a shadow of her mother's throne. The only one who had spoken to her not with fear, but with truth. Yet she could not show this defiance now. Not here, not in the queen's lair. So she bowed her head, hiding the fury in her eyes. "As you command," she whispered. The queen smiled, cruel and satisfied. "Do not fail me, daughter. For if you do, both you and your human will suffer a fate worse than death." That night, Celine left the palace with the dagger hidden beneath her cloak. Her heart pounded like war drums, every step toward the forest heavy with dread. The dagger felt like poison in her hand. It was not a weapon of justice. It was a tool of execution, and it was meant for the man who had shown her life beyond chains. When she reached the ruined temple, Darius was waiting. The moment he saw her, he smiled, though his wounds had not yet healed. "You came back," he said softly. But Celine could not smile. Her throat tightened, her chest heavy with pain. He noticed the dagger, the way she clutched it too tightly. His smile faded, his eyes narrowed. "What has happened?" Celine shook her head, fighting the tears she could never allow herself to shed. "My mother knows," she whispered. "She has ordered me to kill you." Darius did not flinch. He did not beg. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice calm and steady. "Then do it, Celine. If your life depends on it, do it." Her hands shook violently. She could not lift the blade. Every memory of their meetings, every word they had shared, every spark of life he had given her heart burned within her. She could not kill him. She would rather die herself. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I will not obey. I will not be my mother's puppet any longer." For the first time in her life, Celine made her choice. Not as a daughter, not as a princess, but as someone who finally understood freedom. The dagger slipped from Celine's trembling hand. It clattered against the stone floor of the ruined temple, the sound echoing like a final answer. Her chest heaved with the weight of her choice. She had defied her mother, the Queen of Shadows, and there was no going back. Darius watched her in silence. His eyes were steady, not with fear but with something sharper, understanding. "You chose," he said quietly. Celine nodded, though her voice shook. "Yes, I chose you." The forest around them stirred, the air thickening. Celine's senses sharpened instantly. They were not alone. From the tree-line, dark shapes moved, cloaked in black armor, their eyes glowing with red hunger. The queen's guards had followed, just as Celine feared. "Daughter of the throne," one of them hissed, stepping forward. His fangs gleamed in the blood moonlight. "Your mother commands obedience. Deliver the human to us, and perhaps she will forgive your hesitation." Celine's blood burned. She stepped in front of Darius, her cloak spreading like wings of defiance. "No," she said, her voice sharp as steel. "He is under my protection. Touch him, and you face me." The guards snarled, surprised by her boldness. But they were many, and they were loyal to the queen. Their claws extended, their forms blurring as they prepared to strike. Darius reached for his sword, his wounds slowing him, but his will unbroken. "Celine," he said, his tone firm, "you don't have to fight this alone." She turned to him, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "I am not afraid to fight beside you." And then the night exploded into violence. The first guard lunged, moving faster than mortal sight. But Celine met him head-on, her claws clashing with his in a storm of sparks. Her strength was greater than his, fueled by fury and by something she had never fought for before: love. She tore through him, sending his body crashing into the trees. Another came from behind, but Darius was ready. His silver-lit blade cut through the air, striking across the guard's chest. The vampire shrieked as the cursed steel burned his flesh. Though the blow did not kill, it forced him back. The battle became chaos. 3 guards circled, hissing, their movements sharp as lightning. Celine struck, claws raking across pale skin, her fangs flashing as she fought her own kind without hesitation. For centuries, she had been told vampires were eternal, untouchable. But tonight she proved they could bleed. Darius fought with savage precision. Every swing of his glowing sword cut through the darkness. Though slower than them, his courage never faltered. Celine's heart surged at the sight. This human, broken yet unyielding, was no prey. He was her equal. Blood sprayed across the temple stones, the air thick with smoke and fury. One guard grabbed Celine's arm, twisting it cruelly. She snarled, sinking her fangs into his throat, tearing free with a cry that shook the forest. The guard collapsed, lifeless, his blood staining her lips. Darius struck down another with a clean slash, his blade cutting through bone. The remaining guard hissed in rage, his eyes blazing. "You are a traitor, princess. The queen will tear you apart for this." Celine stood tall, her chest heaving, her claws dripping red. "Then let her come," she spat. "I will not obey her. Not anymore." The last guard lunged, desperate. But this time Celine and Darius moved together. Her claws struck first, staggering him. Then Darius' sword cleaved through his chest, ending the battle. Silence fell over the ruins, broken only by their heavy breaths. Bodies of the queen's servants lay scattered, their blood soaking into the earth. Celine wiped her mouth, her eyes glowing fiercely. She had crossed the line. There was no return. Darius leaned against his sword, exhausted but alive. He looked at her, his voice rough. "You fought your own kind for me." Celine met his gaze, her chest still burning with fire. "I fought for the truth. For once in my life, I fought for something real." But even as she spoke, she knew what would come next. The queen would not forgive. Her wrath would descend upon them with fury beyond imagining. The battle tonight was only the beginning. War was coming, and Celine had chosen her side. The forest burned with silence after the slaughter. The fallen guards lay twisted in the ruins, their blood still steaming in the moonlight. Selene stood tall among them, her chest heaving, her claws red. Darius leaned on his glowing sword, his strength fading, yet his spirit unbroken. But the silence did not last. The air thickened, pressing down on them like the weight of the ocean. The blood moon darkened, clouds swirling unnaturally across the sky. And then it came, the voice that froze Selene's blood in her veins. "Daughter." The single word carried across the forest like thunder. It was not shouted, yet it shattered the night. The queen was here. From the shadows she appeared, gliding into the clearing with a grace that no mortal could match. Her cloak spread like wings of darkness, her crown glowing faintly with cursed light. Her eyes were twin flames of crimson, burning with wrath and cold certainty. Around her, the air itself seemed to bleed. Selene's heart pounded. She had imagined this moment, feared it, but now it was real. Her mother stood before her, not just a queen, but an ancient predator, the embodiment of centuries of cruelty and rule. "You dare," the queen said, her voice heavy as stone. "You raise your hand against my servants, against your own blood. And for what? A human." Her gaze shifted to Darius, and her lip curled with disgust. "He is filth, a fragile beast pretending to be brave. Do you not see, child? His kind dies in decades, while ours endures eternally." Selene's fists clenched, her voice shaking but firm. "He is more than you will ever understand. His courage is stronger than your throne, and I will not betray him." The queen's laughter rolled like a storm. "Foolish girl, you think this fire in your heart will save you? You think defiance makes you strong? You know nothing of power." She lifted her hand, and the ground split. Dark energy burst upward, black flames twisting into the sky. The ruins shuddered as ancient magic filled the air. Selene staggered under its weight, while Darius pressed his sword into the earth just to remain standing. "Run," Selene whispered to him. But Darius shook his head, his voice steady. "No, if I run, then your fight means nothing. I stand with you." The queen sneered, her fangs flashing. "Then you will both die together." And the battle began. The queen moved faster than lightning, her claws slicing through stone. Selene barely blocked the strike, her arms trembling from the force. The impact hurled her back, crashing into the broken altar. Darius charged forward, his silver blade burning bright. The queen hissed, recoiling slightly as the cursed steel slashed across her cloak. But it was only a scratch, and her fury only grew. "You dare raise that relic against me?" she snarled. Her power erupted, a wave of black fire that hurled Darius across the ruins. He crashed against the wall, coughing blood, yet he forced himself back to his feet. Selene roared, her own strength rising from the fire in her heart. No longer the obedient daughter, she became a storm of claws and fury. Every strike she unleashed was not just against her mother, but against centuries of chains. Mother and daughter clashed in a storm of shadows and fangs. The ruins cracked beneath their battle, lightning splitting the sky. Selene struck again and again, but the queen was stronger, faster, older. Every blow Selene landed was met with 3 more in return. Her body ached, her blood spilled, yet she did not stop. And then, through the chaos, Darius stood once more. His glowing sword pulsed brighter than before, as if feeding on his will. He cried out and swung with all his strength. The blade struck the queen's arm, slicing deep. Her scream tore through the night, ancient and furious. For the first time, Selene saw fear flash in her mother's eyes. The cursed steel wounded her, truly wounded her. Selene seized the moment, leaping forward, her claws sinking into the wound. The queen shrieked, flinging her back, but the damage was done. Breathing heavily, Selene and Darius stood side by side, both bloodied, both shaking, yet unbroken. The queen glared at them, her fury burning brighter than ever. "You think this will end with victory? I am eternal. You are nothing." Selene's eyes glowed fiercely, her voice steady despite her wounds. Even eternity ends when it has no love left. You may be eternal, mother, but tonight you are not invincible. The queen's roar shook the forest. The final clash was coming. And in that moment, Selene knew, together, she and Darius would either fall or forge a new destiny in blood. The forest trembled under the queen's roar. The blood moon bled deeper across the sky, turning the ruins into a stage of shadows and fire. Selene stood beside Darius, her chest heaving, her claws dripping red, her body scarred from her mother's fury. Darius leaned heavily on his glowing blade, his wounds burning, yet his spirit unbroken. The queen towered before them, her form shifting, growing monstrous. Her cloak became wings of black flame, her nails stretched into talons, her face twisted into a mask of rage. "You are nothing but traitors," she hissed, her voice splitting the air like thunder. "You dare to defy me for a mortal who will wither and die in a blink of time? Then you will die together, and your story will be erased from history." Selene's voice rose, shaking yet sharp. "No, mother, our story will outlive even your darkness." And the battle began anew. The queen descended with the fury of storms, her claws striking like lightning. Selene blocked with all her strength, her arms nearly breaking under the force. Darius leapt forward, his blade flashing silver light, cutting through the queen's flames. The cursed steel hissed against her skin, forcing her back for a heartbeat. But she was relentless. A wave of dark magic surged from her, hurling them apart. Selene slammed into the ground, coughing blood. Darius staggered, barely standing, yet still he raised his sword. His voice thundered across the clearing. "You will not break her. You will not break us." The queen laughed, cruel and endless. "Human, your courage is a spark against the storm. One blow, and you'll be ashes." She lunged, her talons aimed for his chest. But Selene appeared in her path, her claws colliding with her mother's. Their powers clashed, light and shadow twisting violently. Selene's voice broke with fury. "I am not your puppet. I am not your shadow. I am your end." The queen roared, pushing harder. But then Darius struck, his sword driving deep into her side. The cursed steel burned like fire through her flesh. Her scream shattered the night, a cry of rage and pain that echoed for miles. Selene seized the moment. She drove her claws into her mother's chest, aiming for the heart that had never known love. Her eyes burned with tears and fury. "This is for every chain you forged, and for the life you never let me live." With one final cry, she ripped free. The queen's body convulsed, her flames collapsing inward. The forest shook as her form crumbled into ash. The silence that followed was deafening. Selene collapsed to her knees, trembling. Darius dropped beside her, catching her before she could fall further. They were both broken, their bodies failing but alive. The blood moon above began to fade, the clouds drifting apart. For the first time in centuries, the night felt lighter. Selene turned to him, her voice soft, almost breaking. "You stood against her when no one else would." Darius gave a weak smile. "And you stood against her for me." Their hands intertwined, warm against cold. In that touch was everything: defiance, sacrifice, love. The forest slowly stilled. The ash of the queen drifted into the air, carried away by the wind. Her reign had ended. Her empire of fear had fallen. But a legend had risen in its place. The tale of the vampire princess who defied her own blood, and a human warrior who fought beside her. A love so impossible, it became eternal. Generations would whisper their story under starlit skies, not as a tale of death, but of hope, of how one human's courage and one vampire's heart changed the course of darkness forever. Selene looked up at the stars, her voice a whisper only Darius could hear. "Our love is written above us. Not even eternity can erase it." And in that moment, under the quiet night, the princess of shadows and the warrior of light sealed their destiny, not as prey and predator, not as mortal and immortal, but as two souls who chose love, even when the whole world stood against them.